Triangle to Win is on Patreon. Follow the link you see on the screen to find out how to support the show. This is Triangle to Win, a gaming podcast with a focus on all things PlayStation RPGs, a veritable match made in heaven. The aforementioned combo has given us historic games such as Final Fantasy VII and my personal favorite, Kingdom Hearts. I am your host, Karlobster, and it's time to press Triangle to Win. Hello. Welcome to Triangle to Win, episode 9? I'd like to believe it's episode 9. Yeah, we've been doing this for 9 episodes now. That's like 9, 18 weeks, almost 20 weeks. How much is that? 20 weeks divided by 4? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20? 4, 8, 12, 16, 5 months? Nice. But yeah, welcome to Triangle to Win. And I apologize that this episode is going out, I think, a day later, more than a day later than usual for patrons. It's because for patrons. That's because I've been super busy with my own work and my own life. That, oh my God, these past few days have just been everything all at once. And ever since I moved here, now I started this podcast. Wow, my voice is just dying. 1 second. So when I started this podcast, I was in my previous house. That's when I started this. That's when I planned it. And then after everything that happened recently, where I needed to move to this new house, which is my parents' house, and now I also have to bring my mother to the clinic, or not to the clinic, to the ER at like every 7, 8 p.m. in the evening, and then pick her up at around 2, 3 a.m. Things have become pretty difficult to schedule stuff around. And then also my other work has been ramping up also with the busy work and there's many things going on there as well. And then my other work, I'm also trying to make work as well. So there's a lot of things. And honestly, we have a few patrons. Thank you so much. And although even if you guys are just few, it's also understandable why it's few. We're just starting. I also really haven't done a lot of promotion for this podcast in general. I want to find time to actually figure the promotion out. But for now, this podcast is mostly, let's just say, it's mostly for me, for my own satisfaction, to be able to talk about things like video games just more openly and, just for a set amount of time per every 2 weeks, right? And also it's good for me to get in touch again with, all the news and all the new things coming out from the games industry. I remember way back when I was in college, I really would just have my finger on the trigger. Not finger on the trigger. What's the term? I really just have my finger on the pulse for gaming news and gaming releases and everything. And I think that was around the time the PS Vita was still a thing. PS Vita or the PSP maybe. I remember I visited a site called Joystick, I think, if I remember correctly. Joystick. And Joystick had like a bunch of different categories for its news. And PSP, PS2, PS3. And that was fun. But now I use mostly Video Games Chronicle and Push Square. So, yeah. And I don't know why, honestly, why I use these websites. But they're just very reliable when it comes to them actually reporting on some news stuff going on. Although not completely reliable in that regard. Sometimes there may be things that you can only find in the Reddit's Games and Leaks this subreddit. Actually, let me check it out right now. Reddit Games and Leaks and Rumors. Gaming Leaks and Rumors. Okay. It's a bunch of things. I probably should. I need to remember to check these out before starting recording, because I know there's a bunch of things here that aren't being reported to websites. Oh damn! Someone's playing Death Stranding 2 live. Oh wait, that works now. You can do that now. right. But yeah, so today's episode is gonna be a bit shorter. That's what I say for every episode. It's gonna be shorter than usual, but mostly because the timing of this episode is kind of weird. the The moment I released my previous episode was also around the moment that Sony was like, "Hey, we're gonna have a state of play. We're gonna have a state of play. It's gonna be super cool." And so I wasn't able to include that in the previous episode. But now that we're recording this new episode, it feels like that state of play is like super old news. Like I'm going back 2 weeks from the day I recorded this. I mean, 2 weeks from the day I did the research for the articles. I went back 2 weeks, and it doesn't even cover state of play anymore. So, oh well, we're still going to be talking about state of play, but we're not going to be talking about too much, like too in detail about it, because at this point it's old news. Like, who cares anymore? No, not really. A lot of people care, but still, state of play was the biggest thing that happened in the past 2 weeks, alongside the Xbox Direct as well. And yeah, there really isn't nothing else to talk about except for the fact that my dogs are now home. I mean, my French bulldog, who was sick for the past like 2 weeks from a blood parasite, which is canine anaplasmosis, was sick and was hospitalized. But now he's finally home. And my other dog, Julia B, who apparently is also sick with blood parasites but does not show or manifest symptoms, is also sick, right? But not enough to be hospitalized, not enough to have blood transfusion. And for Onion, my French bulldog, he was sick enough that he needed blood transfusion. And big thanks to the vet for finding like a donor for Onion for a blood transfusion. They found a donor. I mean, not really found, but they have regular donors from this animal kind of foundation slash rescue thing that's pretty far away. But they get regular donors there, and good thing the vet was able to go there and found like apparently some of their dogs have already given blood in the past like few days, but there was this one dog who still hasn't given blood. So they were able to take blood from them and transfuse it into Onion Boy, and he's doing fine now. He's still sick technically because the treatment for canine anaplasmosis and any blood parasite actually takes like a month of treatment. So, fortunately for Onion Boy, he was given them medications for 2-ish weeks, and I just now have to continue the 2-ish weeks myself. 2-ish weeks, the next 2-ish weeks, and it's been a ride. I've never really given my dogs medications for this long. Now, before I'd give them like maybe maybe vitamins. I give them multivitamins. I'd have like a syringe and um just inject the syringe in their mouth without the needle, of course. But that's about it of what I do when it comes to giving medications, quote unquote medications to my dogs. So this whole thing here of me giving medications for the past like week or so to both of my dogs has been a challenge, but I think I've been able to get a good routine going. I did ask with the vet if the medications could be crushed, and they said that technically they shouldn't, but sometimes, especially for dogs, it's better to just crush them than to not give them. Because my dogs really know when I'm giving them medications, and they just either run away or just don't, or like I put it into their mouth and they just regurgitate it anyway, you know? And that's a difficult thing because when they regurgitate it, it goes on the floor, it becomes dirty, and it's like, um, but yeah. So I've been giving them the medications for more than a week now, and it's been fun, right? Every day is a challenge, but I'm also seeing at least Onion Boy getting better And when I took him to when I took him to the vet, I don't know what his weight was. It was probably more around 10 kilograms. Then after his first vet, like his first week ish in the at the vet, um, he went down to 8.65 kilograms. Then after his last week at the vet, he went down to 7 kilograms. So that's what I've been trying to get up again because I remember Onion Boys was around 10 to 11 kilograms. So I need to get him up again. And so now I've been feeding him. And usually I feed him a certain amount when he wasn't sick. But now that he's, recovering, so to speak, I give him a bit more food. And I'm surprised that he just gulps it all down, like all the food. Yeah, because Onion Boy is a bit picky when it comes to his food. Not really picky, and he's he's very picky with the amount that he eats. I don't know. Like whenever he eats, he doesn't eat everything. And then he goes back to it after a while. That's how he eats. So I'm surprised now that he just gulps everything up. I'm going to guess that he probably just feels hungry all the time because he's maybe weak compared to when he's not sick. Um but yeah. Now Julia B, the other dog, I'm surprised is not eating everything as well. Maybe that's the manifestation of their sickness, maybe. But not like not eating everything in one like big gulp, you know. Usually for Julia B, whenever I just put the food down on their food bowl down, they just eat it all up. But now what Julia B's doing is they kind of, they kind of linger, they kind of smell it. They kind of smell it and just kind of think about it. Maybe because they smell the medications, which could be a thing as well. When they smell the medications that's bitter, they're they're kind of more averse to trying the food, to eating the food, but oh, what can you do? But they still eventually eat it up anyway when I visit them again in the morning. Today I still need to give them their medications. It's really early in the morning right now, and this is one of the reasons why I've been having a difficult time like finding time to record. The only time that I can record is like 5 a.m. These past few days. So it's currently 6 a.m. and that's the time we're recording this. So forgive me, my voice is a bit weird. If I still do have the morning voice, I have the morning like sniffles. But hopefully by the end of this show, they'll be gone. But we I know we're gonna be talking about State of Play, but I still wanted to go through some news. We're not gonna be talking about State of Play super in depth anymore, but we're still gonna be talking about it. Just maybe the most interesting games from it. So we're not gonna then neglect the news for this week, for these past 2 weeks. Okay, all right. Let's start with the news. So first news: Sony Bend. Now Sony Bend, known for Days Gone and Siphon Filter, which are true to form PlayStation games that they made. True to form PlayStation games, what? But their PlayStation games, Siphon Filter definitely is their biggest legacy, maybe. Days Gone was their most recent game, but Days Gone really hasn't garnered too much success. Although Days Gone did sell a lot, but in terms of critical success, I don't think Days Gone has been, a big splash hit, so to speak. But anyway, Sony Bend, the developer Days Gone, and a recently canceled live service game, has been hit with significant layoffs. Now, this is reported by Bloomberg. The studio has reportedly almost a third of its workforce reduced as part of sweeping changes at Sony Bend. So, I don't know if you remember, but recently there have been a lot of live service game cancellations at Sony, at PlayStation. And one of those is Sony Bend's new project. Sony Bend was working on a live service game after Days Gone, and it was canceled. So, Jason Schreier from Bloomberg said Sony Bend Studio, which canceled a live service game earlier this year, is laying off 30% of staff today, around 40 people. The studio has been spinning up a new project following the cancellation. So their last release was Days Gone, right? Which was this super cool zombie survival action adventure narrative heavy game where you had like the main character riding on a motorbike throughout an open world. And I think the motorbike was a big part of the game. Like you can customize it and everything, and it's basically your dog, so to speak. But I still have yet to play Days Gone. I do want to play Days Gone. I know Days Gone has a remaster or something for PS5. I need to get on that because while Days Gone didn't really get some really good reception, like critically, I do think maybe there's a good game in there, like a really good game in there. But we'll see. We'll see. So earlier this year, Ben Studio wrapped development on a live service concept after a careful consideration, which chose not to move forward with it. As the team shifts focus to its next project, we've made strategic changes to better position the studio for long-term success. Now, Sony Bend is a weird thing, right? Because yes, they're known for Siphon Filter, which was a really cool PlayStation 1 game. I don't know if there's a PS2 Siphon Filter or whatever, but whatever. But they really haven't in the modern era, Sony Bend really hasn't had a hit yet. They did release Days Gone, sure, but PlayStation already has The Last of Us. And I do think maybe they're not going to make another Days Gone. Maybe not, because it kind of conflicts with The Last of Us in their portfolio. It's kind of weird to have two zombie projects, even if this one is open world. Um, so yeah, ever since Days Gone, even before that, they haven't had a real hit on PlayStation. And it seems like now they're laying off people as well. They're spooling up a new project, and their existence continues to be threatened. I feel like because they still haven't made a game in made a real game in how so many years after Days Gone. So I don't know. I feel like this next game might be Ben Studios' last, like, this is their Final Fantasy. This is their Final Fantasy. If this last game doesn't reaches its targets, its milestones in a good way, then I feel like PlayStation is just gonna shutter this studio down, which is unfortunate if that happens. But still, it just goes to show that you definitely need to be producing something. You need to finish something. Now, this live service concept probably was an initiative from the previous like PlayStation CEO, which is which is why it was canceled. Like it seems like they're canceling a lot of their live service efforts, but which are basically the decisions of the previous CEO, and they're retargeting these more single player narrative developers to maybe make more single player games. I would be surprised if Sony was like, Ben Studio, cancel this live service and make another live service. I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they're making Days Gone 2. Just to have something that they already know, for so that when they're pre-producing this thing, they already know the world of Days Gone, they already know what they want from it, they already know the elements in it, and they can make that thing faster than if they would come up with a completely new concept with completely new technology, completely new assets and everything. But who knows? Um but they're really in a tough situation because I don't know if people really want a Days Gone 2. Would people really buy a Days Gone 2? I don't know. We'll see. Um but back in 2021, Sony confirmed that Ben was working on new IP, which was building on the deep open world system that they developed with Days Gone. So it looks like they're still pretty much in on the open world stuff. They wanted this live service game of theirs to be open world, and I'm gonna assume that their next game is gonna be open world again. Um, but yeah, sucks for Ben Studio, but hopefully they can rein themselves in. But a third of the team, oof, pretty significant. 1/3. Okay. So that's our first article for today, just a small one. Next one is Konami confirms it's working on a Silent Hill 1 remake with Bloober Team. the Silent Hill 2 remake developer is working on a second game. So you may remember Bluebird Team was this team that made The Medium for Xbox and some other horror games. And then they're the team that suddenly got a partnership with Konami to make the remake of Silent Hill 2. And when that was first announced, when it was first announced that Bluebird Team was making the Silent Hill 2 remake, people were understandably skeptical about it because Bluebird Team wasn't really people really didn't look at Bluebird Team as that kind of studio. You know, Bluebird Team wasn't him, so to speak, to make Silent Hill 2 remake a reality. Like Silent Hill 2 remake, a good remake, a reality. But they proved everyone wrong when they released Silent Hill 2 last year, and which garnered some amazing critical reception. Everybody loved it. Everybody and their mothers loved it. People loved the performances. The actors did amazing. The graphics are amazing. The combat is fine. It's serviceable. The atmosphere was off the charts. The story was really, really good as well. Everything about it was incredible. So now, to no one's surprise, Konami announced that Bluebird Team is working on the remake to Silent Hill 1. Now, when it comes to these Silent Hills, I don't think I've really played the originals, like seriously. I've played them on my PS1 when I was a kid, of course, but I've probably never even played it for more than 15, 30 minutes, right? Because, you know, they're very obtuse, they're very old, and they were like super scary to me as a kid. You're just walking around in this fog, can't see anything, and then suddenly there's a dog behind a gate or something, like a zombie dog. And then you had this very archaic melee combat system that was so difficult to control. Then you also had the tank controls to go with it. Oh my god. What an era. What an era of video games. But yeah, the announcement was made during a Konami digital showcase on Thursday when the company's logos were displayed alongside the Silent Hill logo and the words "in development." A statement later confirmed, "We are working with Bluebird Team on a remake of Silent Hill, originally released on PlayStation in 1999." Konami and Bluebird Team first announced earlier this year that they would be working together again in a new game, but the pair didn't specify if it was related to the Silent Hill series. So, looks like they are hard at work on Silent Hill 1. I don't know how far this project already is. I'm going to assume it's very, very early, maybe in pre-production still. And the moment they penned the contract or they penned the partnership for Silent Hill 1 remake is maybe also the moment they decided to do a press release and to announce it to the world. So, I don't know how long we're going to see Silent Hill 1, but what do I want to see from Silent Hill 1? I feel like now that now that they have Silent Hill 2 as a base for its combat, I feel like they definitely should tweak the combat a bit for Silent Hill 1. Although Silent Hill 2's combat was perfectly fine, but I feel like now that they have the base of it, they can now expand it. You know, the same way that happened to Death Stranding, right? Because the creation of the first thing is the most difficult thing. You need to have the base, you need to have everything working, you need to limit your scope for the first project just to get it off, just to finish it, right? And now that we're moving into the second game that they're going to make, now that they have, they have the expertise, they have the assets, they have the engine, they already know the engine that they're working with and everything, maybe they can expand more upon the combat itself. That's what I want from a Silent Hill 1. Now, I don't want them to go ahead and make Silent Hill 1 a freaking open world game suddenly. No. I really feel like they should keep the semi now Silent Hill 2 was an open world, but there were segments of it where you could freely explore Silent Hill with like invisible walls and stuff. I still kind of want that exact scope of open world. It's semi-open world. Semi-open world leaning more towards linear. That's what I want from one. I don't want this big sprawling city too. this big sprawling city of Silent Hill to do crime in. No, 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 no. Keep the small limited scope of it. I feel like that's really good um for this game in particular, for these series of games. They're just really narrative and really small tight narrative. But yeah. Uh but in terms of atmosphere, graphics, I trust Bloober Team now. I trust them now. Before I didn't. But even before with Bloober Team, with their work on the medium was very atmospheric already, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they were taken for the Silent Hill 2 project. But now that they know how to make a good game, they just make Silent Hill 1 like Silent Hill 2, but just better. That's it. That's all you need to do. And I know Bloober Team is also currently hard at work on their other game, which is like a sci-fi space shooter horror game. So, crazy. Looks like they're on the up and up. Bloober Team, let's go. So, this is probably 3 years out, 4 years out. Who knows? Silent Hill 1. But, yeah. Next news. PlayStation removes PC region locks for Helldivers 2, The Last of Us Part 2, and more. Most PlayStation PC titles were previously unavailable in regions without PSN. So remember that PlayStation had this whole debacle about having region locks for Steam accounts, for Steam players on their PlayStation games that PlayStation PC ports. Now, if you weren't part of these 100 or so countries, 130 plus countries, then you couldn't make a PlayStation account in your country, meaning you can't play the game that you bought on Steam, right? And that was an issue before, because they did that change after Helldivers 2 released. So the game was already in people's Steam libraries and everything, and then suddenly, like maybe a week after or something, PlayStation was like, nope, please make a PlayStation account or else you won't be able to play this game, right? And making a PlayStation account is simple enough, but when some people were trying to make a PlayStation account, they couldn't choose whatever country that they're in. For example, me, PlayStation Philippines does not exist on the store, meaning if I were to make a PlayStation Philippines account, I wouldn't be able to, aka I wouldn't be able to play Helldivers 2 on my Steam account as well. So that, understandably frustrated a lot of players. And from that point on, every new PlayStation port had that thing where you need to make a PlayStation account, and otherwise you're region locked out if you're not from these countries that are supported. But I remember 2 weeks ago, before Stellar Blade PC released, the developers of Stellar Blade on Twitter at the time said that told the players, the players that were interacting with them, to look forward to some changes with regards to PlayStation's regional lock and account thing. And they just tweeted out on Twitter, which sort of hinted that PlayStation is doing something to make things right. And looks like that could be true. So previously, most of PlayStation's PC ports couldn't be purchased in regions that didn't support PSN. While there were workarounds for this issue, including the relatively simple steps of making Steam and PSN accounts for different regions, these region locks frustrated affected players. While the argument for a mandatory PSN can be made for multiplayer titles, such as Concord, the inclusion in strictly single-player titles has previously attracted the ire of players. You're right, because it's a single-player game, and you really don't need to be connecting to a server or anything for your single-player game, because it shouldn't interact with anything online. It's not going to interact with any other player online. Maybe it's going to interact with like a microtransaction store, but that's about it, right? Now, it seems that most of PlayStation's biggest PC ports, including God of War Ragnarok, The Last of Us Part 2, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and Helldivers 2, have removed the regional restrictions from their respective Steam listings. So this is, there are a bunch of screenshots here, but apparently Sony appears to be removing regional restrictions on their Steam and PC games. So that's cool. Finally. It's just annoying that it took this long, though, for this to happen. Now, because I've actually been considering buying Helldivers 2 on PC. I already have it on PlayStation, but I don't know. There's something about having Helldivers 2 on PC so that I can play it easily on Steam Deck as well. Kind of entices me, but maybe not because I need to buy it again. But still, this is a win, especially for potential Helldivers 2 players, given that Helldivers 2 is currently PlayStation's biggest live service hit so far. So they really needed to do this. I don't know why they just had to do this change like in the beginning anyway, where they'd lock out you buying the game in 100 plus countries. Don't they want money? I guess they don't. But anyway, I hope this also means that maybe PlayStation Philippines PSN, please? Right? Am I the only PlayStation player in the Philippines that's buying the games? Is that why they're not servicing this area that I'm in? Please. I found out recently that PlayStation is now allowing Apple Pay on their stores, on their PSN stores. But, it's the same thing where Apple Pay does not work here where I am. It works if you have a US, if it works if you have a credit card from whatever countries Apple Pay is available in, which I don't. So I have this Apple Pay thing on my phone I can't even use because I don't have a credit card from another country. So it's kind of annoying, right? All I want to do is just, slingshot myself into the future of cashless payments and everything. But I can't because I live in the Philippines. And nothing's available here. God. Okay. But anyway, good for Steam players. They can play their PlayStation games without worry. Next news. Another PlayStation news. Pretty cool, actually. This is pretty cool news. Sony confirms PS5 has more monthly players than PS4 for the first time. So last year, Sony said PS4 and PS5 users were a 50-50 split. Sony has noted for the first time that more players are using PS5 each month more than PS4. So during Sony's business segment meeting in May 2024, SIE shared an update on PlayStation Business. This included a slide which showed the number of monthly active users in PS4 and PS5 was about 49 million each. But now, it notes that combined, there are a total of 124 million monthly active users compared to a figure of 97 million in last year's report. And also, now the PS5 takes a larger share of the time spent on consoles, on PlayStation consoles, more than the PS4. So that's pretty cool. Finally, we're at this moment where PS5 has overtaken PS4 in terms of current concurrent users. The PlayStation 5 offers the best way for players to experience our content, and as such, its player base has continued to grow. Now, these players are highly engaged, spending more on content and services than in prior generations. However, the PS4 remains an important access point for existing players to experience our content and services. Now, here is what I see here. There's also a note here that PS5 has generated more revenue than all previous generations combined, which is telling of what's happening right now, where even if let's see, how do I frame this? Even if PS5 underwent a lot of challenges with its stock, during the COVID era in 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021, it seems like it's finally catching up, and that even with that big roadblock to start with, that it's now still enjoying big success when it comes to the generating revenue and everything, and people being engaged and people buying more games than ever. The one thing's for sure here is that people are spending more than ever on games, peripherals, DLC, downloadable content than ever before. And there's always this talk about oh no, PlayStation 5 isn't as popular anymore, isn't as widespread anymore as the previous generations. But this kind of puts that to rest, that maybe sure it isn't as big of a console as like a PS2 or something, right? But people are spending more than ever on their games and content, and the the console pie is just growing and growing. Even if it's growing really slowly, console gaming is here to stay because of there's a lot of things that are contributing to this, right? I feel like a big contribution to this is PlayStation's push into underserved markets, into new emerging markets. That includes stuff like South Korea. That includes China. That includes, all their other stuff like India, Middle East, right? Because they've been nurturing talent from all these areas and then slapping them on PlayStation 5 marketing and getting people to buy PS5s and to get into the PlayStation ecosystem and hopefully retain them there for years to come and generations to come, especially for the China thing. Because in China, they're one of the first big PlayStation exclusives, PS5 exclusives, was Black Myth Wukong. Remember that? When Black Myth Wukong released, especially with all the buzz and all the PR and all the media attention that it got, it became super popular and had like a bajillion freaking concurrent players on Steam or something. And now in China, PC is a more popular option, right? PC gaming is so much more popular in China, which makes sense, right? But what Sony's doing right now by nurturing Chinese talent, nurturing Chinese team to make games for both PlayStation 5 and PC, now you're basically telling them that, oh, for those of you in China, right, for the so many of you gamers there in China, if you don't have a PC, you have another option right now, and it's the PlayStation 5, right? Because not even if China is a big country with a lot of people, not everyone's gonna be like, yeah, I'm just gonna be on PC. There are people who are gonna look at a PS5 and be like, wait. So instead of spending $1,000 on a PC, or instead of buying a new GPU or upgrading my PC, I can just get this PS5 to play Black Myth Wukong, right? Or I can just get this PS5 to play all these new Chinese AAA developed games that look super cool. Did you guys see the Blood Message game that was recently shown? That was really cool. Then, so there are still people who are going to be interested in that. And by doing that and by starting that, even if the growth is slow, you get to kind of infiltrate the zeitgeist when it comes to gaming. You're like, oh, so in China, it's not just PC. Our option is just not PC for games. Now, there's also a big push for PlayStation, PS5. So goes with South Korea. I'm pretty sure South Korea is predominantly PC because it has a really big emphasis on games like StarCraft, right? And those are very PC. Those are basically PC things. But now you got developers like Stellar Blade, who made Stellar Blade. You got developers that made Lies of P. And then when they market their games, they're like, yeah, it's on PC, but it's also on PlayStation, and they're gonna market the hell out of PlayStation. People are gonna buy PlayStation, PS5s, and everything, and then you get the ball rolling. Because otherwise, if you do nothing, then you'll never get the ball rolling. You'll never get the PS5, the PlayStation, the consoles into the zeitgeist. So this is pretty cool. So it's not just South Korea and China, like I said. Sony has also been nurturing talent from India with the India Hero Project, I think. Also MENA Hero Project, of course, the China Hero Project, and a lot of things have been coming out from these projects, and they're all going to be marketed with PlayStation in mind. So cool. So good for them, and good for. And also, in general, we're not just even talking about sales and statistics and everything. It's just cool to have more games made elsewhere, not just in America, not just in Japan, not just in France or something. Because with more people from more cultures making games based on what they know, based on their worldview, based on what they've experienced as a culture, as a person, as an individual, right? And they put that all of that energy into a product, into a creative endeavor, into art. I think that's just much better and much healthier for all of us, that we'll get exposed to so many different types of games made from everywhere in the world, right? So recently, um China has a lot of those games. And even if, yeah, sure, let's say a Chinese game comes out, it's a Souls-like. Let's say it's a Souls-like. Let's say it's an action game inspired by Devil May Cry and everything. Now that's just one piece of the pie. You can be like, yeah, it's just another hack and slash. Not really, because what about the story? The story's gonna be, for example, for Wukong, that story is very. I doubt anyone just from anywhere like the America would just straight up make a story like that, right? That kind of implies they have a deep knowledge on that topic, on the story of Wukong. And then there are these other things that come into play as well, like what are their intricacies, what are the nuances when it comes to gameplay, right? When it comes to storytelling, when it comes to the characters, there's a bunch of nuances there which are born from the individual itself that is making the game. And that's why a bunch of US games, a bunch of American games are made a certain way, are made to feel a certain way, are made to be written a certain way compared to Japanese games, right? With Japanese games, you can tell a game is very Japanese compared to a game that is very American. Even if the subject matter is the same, they make different types of games. Um, let's say in the American side, we got Ghost of Tsushima, right? Ghost of Tsushima, made by Insomniac. It's a Japanese story set in a Japanese setting, but the whole thing is very American. The whole open world checkboxing is a very American style of game to make, to do. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have stuff of Final Fantasy 16, who's more in line with more in line with an action adventure character action game with a bunch of cool like anime type of battles, kaiju battles. That's very Japanese, even if the setting is kind of medieval Europe, kinda, right? So there are a lot of nuances, and it's good to see a lot of talent being nurtured from everywhere. Okay, cool. Next article is, oh my god, this article makes me puke. This article makes my makes my brain hurt. But anyway, VGC PlayStation 6. Sony says future platforms top of mind, exploring new and enhanced ways to play. So, PlayStation reiterates it's committed to consoles, thinks cloud remains additional option. So, PlayStation has discussed its future console strategy and said it's committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with games, and that the future of the platform is top of mind. So, SIE's new CEO, Hideaki Nishino, was asked during a business segment meeting about the future of PlayStation console hardware and whether it could be superseded by cloud gaming. Well, which is a weird thing to ask. Why are we talking about cloud gaming when it hasn't really been a factor in general? Nishino emphasized that PlayStation now has multiple generations of experiences, providing players with cloud-based gameplay, and stated that while he views it as a viable option for players, he believes overall demand remains for the local execution of games. So that he went on about cloud gaming, whatever. I don't really care about cloud gaming. What? I don't think cloud gaming is going to be a thing. I feel like cloud gaming can't be a thing until it can become like usable in countries that are not America and Japan. It can't be. Because your audience, even if your biggest audience is from the US and Japan, your audience is still global. And it's going to be hard to just be like, hey, yeah, cloud gaming, just in the US. It needs to be global. It needs to be everywhere. It needs to be China. needs to be in the Philippines, needs to be in Southeast Asia, needs to be in France or something, right? But anyway, we now have a large ecosystem of highly engaged players across both the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 generation. So naturally, therefore, there's a huge interest in our next generation console strategy. While we cannot share further details at this stage, the future of the platform is top of mind. We are committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services. So, PlayStation has been talking a lot recently about engagement. And engagement really has been the primary statistic that's been being measured right now everywhere. And that's like even TikTok, YouTube, and now even games and game consoles, because it doesn't really matter because engagement is kind of this concept where when a player buys into the ecosystem, right? It's one thing for them to buy one time, right? It's cool. Yeah, you bought a PS5, you bought NBA 2K, and that's it, right? While you did make a sale, that person isn't engaged in the platform. To be engaged in the platform means that the person keeps coming back, keeps playing games, and when they keep playing games, they finish more games, they buy more games, they interact with more games, they buy more DLC, they buy more peripherals. That's an engaged player. And that's more important than just raw sales data. They need to make players engaged and immersed in their platform. And you see a bunch of things that PlayStation has been doing recently to increase engagement. And one of those things that has been a good success for them is PlayStation Portal. Now, PlayStation Portal was kind of memed on when it was first announced. What do you mean you're releasing a little device that just plays PlayStation games via remote play only? What do you mean you're releasing a handheld that doesn't play games locally on it, like the Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck, right? But also, the PlayStation Portal is also cheaper. How much is a PS Portal? PS Portal price. Looks like it's $300 or less, right? And people were like, "What's the point? This is just an Android tablet, which you connected." Which you split a PlayStation controller, and then connected to its sides to have a controller on this Android tablet. Yeah, sure. But ever since then, PS Portal has been the highest selling kind of peripheral in PlayStation peripheral in the United States, in the United States, and that's telling of what the general sentiment actually is about PS Portal. Now on Twitter, everybody hates the Portal for some reason, but the sales tell you otherwise. So now this PS Portal is garnering great success, and it's also a great success in keeping players engaged. So this means a player who bought a PS Portal would be more inclined to bring their PlayStation games wherever they want to go, and that includes going to bed, where they previously couldn't. So before, you were probably locked to a couch. That's where you can play your PlayStation games, and that's it. And you play on your couch for 2 hours every night, and then you stop, and then you sleep, and then you go back and do it again every day, right? But now, how is this keeping player engaged? How is this keeping players engaged? Now, for example, right, you have this guy who's playing his PS5 on the couch. Now, right before he goes to bed, he can play even more on his bed before going to sleep. More of that game. In the morning, when he wakes up, he can play even more. Doesn't need to go out of his bed, right? And then he does his stuff in real life. He can go back to his console and play more. He can go to his friend's house and play more. He can go and travel on an airplane and play more there with his PS Portal. And what happens is he gets more immersed. He gets more immersed in the PlayStation ecosystem, and he is more inclined to buy more games because he can now play them more as well, right? So that's kind of like the just a one example of being engaged in the platform. And that's what PlayStation has been experimenting with a lot of their little projects, with a lot of their things that, from you just look at them and what the hell is this PlayStation? What's going on? Why do you have a PS Portal? Right? But then you realize, yeah, this is all just to gather data on what keeps players engaged. Because now with the PS Portal, you also get new data as to the behavioral, kind of the behavioral patterns of its players as well. So if you give a player the option to bring their games anywhere, it looks like a lot of players play more in the evening, for example. A lot of players play more from 11 p.m. to 12 midnight, right? That's because you gave them the ability to bring their games anywhere and into the bedroom and literally on the bed, right? So yeah, so now what this means is that I think what they're saying here is that we are committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services. I think this means handheld. I think this means we're going portable in some way in the future. Not maybe another PS Portal type of device, but hopefully more of a Steam Deck type of device. Because, it's been said many times that we are currently in this era where we don't really need to sacrifice a lot to get a game on a handheld anymore. Before, if the PlayStation 3 was doing, if the console was doing 3D graphics, the only thing we could really do on a handheld was 2D graphics, was pixel art, right? But now we can do both. We can do high fidelity, cool graphics on both devices, whether it be on a console, a PC, or a portable device like the Steam Deck, right? Of course, there are going to be sacrifices, the resolution and everything, but you know, because it's a smaller screen, you can do that without really affecting how the game looks in a super big way. So we are now at that sort of junction, and it's interesting to see that PlayStation might be going back to handhelds after it ceded the handheld market to freaking Nintendo Switch all those years ago. PlayStation had a good thing going with the PSP. And sure, they fumbled the PS Vita, but they already had their hands in handheld. But I guess I wonder if they didn't see a future in handhelds. I wonder if they really just saw people being stuck to the consoles forever. And they didn't see what Nintendo saw when Nintendo made the Nintendo Switch, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, so handhelds are a thing that Sony did before, even with stuff like the N-Gage, right? Surely they can go back to it and create another compelling handheld product, especially in this era where handhelds are much more accepted. So, can't wait to see what their strategy is. Rumors say that the strategy is to release a PS6, and then this handheld will basically be another PS6, maybe with 30% less power, right? But the thing is, what's going to happen is, for example, on your PS6, you can play your game at 4K 60 FPS on your PS6. On the handheld, because the screen is going to be really small, you can possibly get away with 720p and 60 FPS. That's what the Steam Deck has been doing with its screen. It's a 720p. The games are running in 720p, but the performance is good at 60 FPS. That's an avenue they could take. Now, if they're gonna be friggin' spicy and do like, oh, you can play 4K on your handheld, then that's doomed. Who cares? You're gonna have 4K and then it's gonna be 15 FPS. Who cares? And you can't even see it anyway because the screen is super small. They need. I hope what they do is just make a PS6, just underpower it, and then also the games that are playing on it should still feel and play the same, except for play at a lower resolution, maybe a lower graphics tier, and that's it. And PlayStation has been doing this already with its games where it has multiple graphics tiers. It has a performance mode, it has a quality mode, right? So now you can have a quality mode, a performance mode, and a handheld mode, and not really sacrifice a lot when it comes to making these games, right? So that's exciting. And it's interesting also that PS4 still is going strong. I think And it's not just going strong just because people haven't made the switch to PS5. No. It's going strong because PlayStation has been continuing to release games on PS4. And I feel like they're going to still continue releasing games on PS4 even when the PS6 is out. Because this is one concept that I just heard recently, and it's a very interesting concept now. Because this is the first real generation where, I mean, the PS6 will probably be the first generation where we'll have 3 generations going at the same time. And what's happening is that you have a multi-generation generation. So for the people that wants a top tier, the bleeding edge of content, they'll go in PS6. But for the rest of us, not for the rest of us, for the rest of the people who just want to play games that look good and feel good, there's a much lower entry point in the PS4, right? And before, this wasn't really possible because if I remember correctly, for example, something like NBA 2K. NBA 2K's PS4 version was vastly different from its PS3 version, for example. But now, if you release a game on multiple generations, they feel pretty much the same with some concessions on graphics and frame rate and stuff, but they're all the same game. So if there are people really who can't afford the PS5 and PS6, you'll still be serviced quite well by the PS4 and still get new releases as they come out. And that's pretty exciting, actually. I mean, it's not a good thing when it comes to, for example, if a game is gonna be made for PS6, you bet they shouldn't be keeping the PS4 in mind, unless it's like a small game, like a small game, like a pixel art game, or maybe just a retro looking game, not be really cutting edge, right? But if a game doesn't really look super complicated, let's say a Persona game, I think they'd benefit well from just releasing on PS6, PS5, and PS4. And Nintendo Switch 2, release it everywhere and get more sales that way. So interesting. It's an interesting time that we live in. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see what happens for the next generation. Even if I don't want it to happen yet, I feel like it's smart to have it happen sooner rather than later. Because these generations are getting smaller and smaller. And I think we should just take the hit of having all 3 generations going at the same time. Just do it, right? But yeah. Next article. This next one, nothing really much to talk about here, but it's been officially done. Bungie has officially delayed Marathon. Your voice has been strong and clear. The Destiny studio says it will continue to refine and test the PlayStation shooter. So Bungie has officially delayed its shooter Marathon, claiming that it needs more time to refine and test the game. It said it needs more time to craft Marathon into the game that truly reflects your passion, and that it will use the additional development time to empower the team to create the intense high-stakes experience that a title like Marathon is built around. So Marathon was initially set to release on September 23 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. And yeah, but then a few weeks ago, if you remember, Marathon and Bungie got into this controversy where a bunch of the assets in Marathon were stolen from another artist. Actually, a lot of its visual identity was stolen from an artist on Twitter. And because of this issue, I feel like a lot of the art style, a lot of the art and assets need to be reworked to remove. It's crazy. It's crazy because what happened, from what I read, what happened is they quite literally just took like images that the artist posted and just put in the game. Like whoever artist in Bungie basically downloaded those images and just put it into the game. And it wasn't caught. It wasn't seen by the development team because I don't know what happened. There were no checks and balances for that. There was no, I guess whoever the art director was there didn't be like, yeah, show me your files. Show me your PSD of where you made this. You know? They just let it through. And so they're in this debacle now where basically a lot of its visual identity is stolen. And so now we've been waiting for what they were going to do, and they've officially delayed Marathon indefinitely, it seems like. They say it's to take more time to craft the game into to refine and test the game, but honestly, it's quite clear that it's been delayed because they need to remove all the stolen art and then calibrate the game as well. Now, this begs the question then. I wonder if when Marathon comes back, is it going to be DOA? Because this was supposed to be their time. This was their, if everything just went smoothly, this was their time to really capture everyone with this new game of theirs, right? Because a lot of people are hyped for this still. But now that there's like controversy around it, the moment it comes back, people are going to be hypercritical on it. And now I feel like if I was on the art team of Marathon, I'd go back and check every single art, every single piece to make sure nothing here has been stolen. Because what if it comes back, right? Many months later, and still there's something still stolen from it. Because it's hard now to just trust that, whatever more art that was submitted to it was not stolen. But maybe it isn't as big as I think. But still, I'm just making this scenario up where what if they come back and there's still stolen art? Then that's it. Then it's over, right? I wonder if this delay could be like, oh man, this art thing is deeper than we thought. There's more stolen art. I wonder. Well, not really. But yeah. So Marathon indefinitely delayed. And you know what happens when games get delayed? Games being delayed for a few months is very expensive. Because that's salaries of people. That's a lot more time being used in the development of the game. It's very expensive. So I don't know how long this delay is going to be, but it shouldn't be super long, or else they'll just be or else it's just better to shut them down. Because Bungie cost PlayStation so much money. What was the Bungie acquisition? Bungie acquisition cost. What was it? $3.6 billion to buy Bungie. And I don't think they've recouped that cost at all. They're not even close. How do you recoup $3.6 billion? Maybe in the next 50 years or something, maybe. So Bungie needs to lock in and get this thing out and make it the best game ever. And then make another game that's the best game ever. And then make another one to recoup that $3.6 billion for PlayStation. But we'll see. Feels bad to be Bungie at the moment. So in our RPG news, after much speculation, a Persona 4 remake has officially been confirmed. Persona 4 Revival was announced during the Xbox Game Showcase. So Persona 4 is coming back in a remake in the same vein as Persona 3 Reload. So it's called Persona 4 Revival, and it's coming to Xbox Series XS, PS5, and PC. But when you look at this trailer, there's next to nothing in it. There's only the main character walking through, the town that you walk through in Persona 4, and that's it, nothing else. Which is a bit surprising because I remember when they first showed Persona 3 Reload, they showed a lot of it already, like cutscenes, gameplay, and all the graphical improvements. And this is a weird trailer because it's weird because they just showed the guy walking for like 5 seconds or something, and that's it, nothing else. Now, I wonder why they felt the need to just release it like this, just 5 seconds of footage without anything substantial. And I think I have a theory for it, and that's that this game isn't close to being completed at all. Like, I'm pretty sure what this means is this is quite literally the only thing that I have from this game already made. And that Xbox is like, we need this in our show. Anything, just shoot a little video, please. Right? So, Persona 4 Revival. Persona 4 is not my favorite Persona. Persona 3 is my favorite, but Persona 4 I definitely like more than Persona 5. And however, I didn't play Persona 4 Golden. I might just go straight to Revival, but I don't know. I wonder if they're going to include Golden content in Revival. Who knows? Did they include Fest? Yeah, they included like Fest stuff in Persona 3. So yeah, I hope they include all the Golden stuff in Revival. So when I play Persona 4 Revival again, then I'll be able to experience all that content for the first time. Cool. But while I feel like this is super early in development, I feel like it's gonna be a banger for sure. So yeah, Persona 4 finally announced. Next, RPG news: Stellar Blade becomes the second PlayStation published game to pass 100,000 concurrent players on Steam. So the newly released PC port has overtaken Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and Spider-Man. So the PC port of the game was released on Wednesday and has seen its concurrent player count continue to gradually grow since then. As the time of writing, the game's concurrent player count has just passed 6 figures, with a current all-time peak of 100,000 something. So this makes the game, which is published on Steam by Sony under its PlayStation Publishing LLC arm, only the second PlayStation game to hit 6 figures. It still got some way to go to beat the other, however. Helldivers 2 was an enormous success, hitting an all-time peak of 458,709 concurrent players. So Stellar Blade has went on to become the second most played PlayStation published game under Helldivers, which is a live service game. That's cool. But also, I think Stellar Blade has a lot of things going for it. It's also that it didn't take long for Stellar Blade to go from PS5 to PC, which makes sense. Also, Stellar Blade is a quote-unquote Souls-like, which is why it's super popular in PC as well. And also, it's visually striking. Also popular stuff on PC and Steam. And also, the fact that this developer is very good with adding more stuff to the game. The PC version of Stellar Blade includes 25 new costumes, a new boss battle, and has support for all the bells and whistles for PC like DLSS and FSR, higher resolution textures, ultra-wide support, and more. And apparently, it seems like the PC port is actually really good. So good on them for making a PC port that PC players are satisfied with. Now, my question is, how many of these 100,000 concurrent players are players just testing out their mods? God, I can already see the mods for this game. It's crazy. I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm pretty sure the mod community is crazy right now for this game. So, congrats to Shift Up for making a good game and making the game they want to make, then putting it on PC and PlayStation and reaping the rewards. Congrats. Next up is Sega accidentally revealed sales numbers for Sonic, Like a Dragon, Persona, and more. Sega mistakenly included sales numbers in a presentation doc, unfortunately. So Sega accidentally revealed sales numbers of many of its recent major releases, including games in the Like a Dragon, Sonic, and Persona series. The sales numbers were included in a recent presentation document uploaded to Sega Sammy's investor relations website. A table of sales numbers was found to have been hidden in one slide of the presentation. The document has since been removed by Sega Sammy, but not before Reset Era archived the sales numbers in full. So, in the document, apparently, one of the interesting things here is Persona 5 Royal has sold over 7 million units. And now it's clear that, damn, Persona 5 really just sold a lot, huh? And that's also the reason why they're going to milk Persona 5 to hell. But interestingly enough, Persona 3 Reload also sold a respectful 2 million 2 million sales as well for Persona 3 Reload. Considering it's a remake of an old Persona game. Damn, these Persona games are selling really good, actually. Maybe it should have been more in my mind. I feel like I wish, not really I wish, but in my mind, I feel like they should sell more because Persona 5 was so talked about and so revered. Wait, Persona 5 Royal. So this just means just the Royal one, right? What? I wonder. I wonder if this is Persona 5 plus Royal instead of Persona 5 Royal only for 7 million. Because this would be crazy if this is Royal only. So they release like a definitive edition of the game and then still sells additional 7 million. Huh. Interesting. Then also here we get sales on the Like a Dragon series. So Like a Dragon sold almost 3 million. Then the sequel to Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, sold almost 2 million. And this is crazy because these games are cheap to make. They're not super expensive. They reuse assets and they're able to sell 3 million copies. That's great. And the Like a Dragon, the Man Who Erased Their Name series is even more of like a reused asset type of game. Reused asset type of game. But it's more of that game that reuse a bunch of assets, I think. I think this doesn't have... I think this is still in Kamurocho, right? The Man Who Erased Their Name. It doesn't involve creating a new area like Hawaii or something. And it still sold 1 million copies. That's crazy. That's cool. Then Sonic selling a lot. Sonic Frontiers, 5 million. Superstars, 2.4 million. Shin Megami Tensei, even if it's a much more niche product compared to Persona, is still selling 2 million. Their games are selling a lot, right? Even if these aren't super mega popular games, like for example, like a Final Fantasy, right? Final Fantasy is much more popular than these games by a lot. These are more niche games, but still, they're selling a very respectable amount. A big amount, actually. They're punching above their weight, I feel like. So that's good for Sega, but it's funny that Sega accidentally showed this. So now we have sales data for for their stuff, but it's so annoying. Why is Sonic selling so much more than Sonic sells so much? They made 4.6 million in Sonic Frontiers, Sonic Superstars 2.4 million. And Like a Dragon and all this other stuff is selling less than that. That's crazy. Team Sonic Racing 3.5 million? What? Wow. That's crazy how they're selling so much of Sonic, given how many games there are. Everyone loves their blue boy. Their blue furry boy. Next up. Actor Charlie Cox feels like a total fraud after Expedition 33 success. So Charlie Cox, the Daredevil guy, the actor for Daredevil, played Gustav in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And he says he feels like a total fraud when people congratulated him for his contribution to the game. So this is what he said. Apparently the game is awesome. I have no idea. I haven't played it. My agent asked me if I wanted to go and do some voiceover. I was in the studio for 4 hours maybe. People keep saying how amazing it is and congratulating me, and I feel like a total fraud. Cox went on to say he's so thrilled for the company and he's ecstatic the game is doing so well. So, it's pretty interesting, right? It makes sense now. I remember when I was still playing the game, I already finished it. When I was playing the game, I was like, why is the marketing? Not really marketing. Why is the... when actors do rounds at different cons and they do interviews and everything, when a game releases, they usually have interviews with a main character. And now when I was playing it, Gustav is in many ways the main character, but there's a bunch of main characters in Clair Obscur. But Gustav is also the main character with a big name attached to it, like a big Hollywood actor name attached to it, and that's Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, right? So it was interesting to me why Charlie Cox wasn't really in the rounds, in the marketing rounds, the marketing beats. They were going to different events, different interviews, and Charlie Cox was nowhere to be seen. And instead, their main liners were Ben Starr and Jennifer English, who played Mael. Jennifer English also played Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3 and a bunch of other things. So I was wondering why that is. And now this makes more sense, right? Because I feel like Ben Starr, Jennifer English, they were more involved with the game itself. Yes, they're just voice actors, but they're also more involved in a way where they believe in the game. They have, at least for Ben Starr, they have ties to the genre. They have ties to its inspirations, to the game's inspirations, like Final Fantasy. And they're just overall very immersed in this games industry that they're just more involved in it, in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And that's why when Ben Starr is always, doing interviews, he doesn't just talk about his role in the game. He also talks about how important the game is, what it represents, what its inspirations are. He knows a lot about the actual DNA of the game. As compared to Charlie Cox, right here, this confirms that Charlie Cox, this was just another gig to him. This was just another voice acting gig. He probably voice acted some movie as well at some point, or some animated series, who knows? But this was just another one of those little jobs for him that he does in and out and is done with. He wasn't involved in the creation of this game in any way. Like, not involved in like developing the game, but involved in seeing the game go from concept to reality, and making sure that everybody knows about it and stuff like that, right? So he wasn't that involved in the making of this game, aside from just from the voice acting. And so he said he was in there for 4 hours, maybe an exaggeration, but it's cool to know this, that it's also, it makes sense also now why they were able to get Charlie Cox to voice their quote unquote main character. It's because, anyway, no spoilers. I'm not going to spoil anything here for Clair Obscur, but it makes sense now why they were able to get him, of all people. Because I'm going to assume this is a very expensive hire. This is a very expensive, voice actor to get for your game. And by the way, this is their first game, by the way. Sandfall Interactive. Where did they get the funding for this? If they were going to have like a Charlie Cox in their game to voice act, right? And I do know that this game, well, at least the rumors, the numbers around implies that this game wasn't super expensive to make. But now it makes sense how they were able to get Charlie Cox to do this, if he really was just in the studio for 4 hours. It all makes sense now. If you play the game, you'll get what I mean. But yeah, so basically, voice actor Gustav isn't really involved too much, wasn't really immersed, wasn't really not motivated. I don't know what the correct term is, but it was just another voice acting gig. That's it. But whatever it is, he brought Gustav to life, and we thank him for it. What did annoy me, though, was on Twitter, there are some people who didn't like his answer to this question, like what he thinks about the game and everything. It's kind of funny. There are some people who were disappointed in his answer. And to that, I was like, what did you expect? What else are you expecting? I guess it would be cool, for example, if you really like Charlie Cox as an actor and you like him in Daredevil, it would be cool if this guy would just validate my feelings about games and be like, yeah, I love this game. I played it. I love RPGs. And we'll be able to have a new champion to be like, oh my God, he's a nerd. He loves us, right? But I feel like it shouldn't matter. I feel like a lot of us have been spoiled by people like friggin' Henry Cavill being like, oh yeah, I'm a nerd. I played Dungeons and Dragons. Like, woo! Yay, my hobby isn't weird anymore because Henry Cavill does it. If Henry Cavill does it, then it's good now, right? I can play my games freely now, right? In front of my mom and everything. Ooh. But I guess people were disappointed that Charlie Cox wasn't that guy. He wasn't like, yeah, I love JRPGs. Oh, Final Fantasy 9 is my favorite. Ooh. But that's okay. Chill. It's fine. What's important is, they got the right actor for the main character. Love it. And lastly, while this wouldn't typically go into RPG news, this is a very interesting thing. Now, this is about Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, which is the new game from Naughty Dog, the makers of Last of Us and Uncharted. So Intergalactic PS5 may see Naughty Dog leaning further into RPG elements, exploring new frontiers. So the next game from Naughty Dog is Intergalactic, and while we have a rough idea of what to expect, details on the game's structure and mechanics remain under wraps for now. However, eagle-eyed fans on Reddit have spotted one potential clue from a former Naughty Dog employee. According to this person's profile, they worked on RPG progression systems for the upcoming sci-fi action title. This has naturally led people to believe Intergalactic may be the studio's most RPG-leaning game to date. So, it makes sense to me that hopefully they lean more into the RPG-ness of it, skill trees, building up your character, and getting harder and harder fights as the game progresses, like harder fights, bigger bosses, stronger bosses, stuff like that. Because this game really feels like it could benefit from it. It's a very sci-fi space kind of adventure romp, whatever. It'd be cool to get some cool new abilities, put points into whatever stats, right? And gain different skills, skill trees, passive, active skills and stuff like that. It would be real cool. So yeah, this is their newest detail we got for Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, RPG progression systems. So nothing else much to talk about. That's it for the news. Now for the games that I wanted to talk about today, I want to talk about two games that I finished recently, and that's Clair Obscur and Death Stranding. There isn't really much else to say about these two games that I already haven't talked about before, but for Clair Obscur specifically, while I love everything, a lot of it, I love the combat, the story, the world that they made, the graphics, the actors, the performances, everything. There's one thing that really kind of soured the playthrough for me. And it didn't really sour. Sour is a bit of a harsh term, but it kind of reduced my enjoyment of the story by a little bit. It's that there's basically something that happens further into the story where it's a pretty big event and it puts the story on its head. It kind of changes reality, so to speak. And that moment in the game that I'm talking about is it's been seen in a lot of games, but in this one, I really wanted it to not be this. It's hard for me to talk about in a non-spoilery context. That's why I'm not going to talk too much about it. But yeah, so that's the biggest thing that kind of affected my enjoyment a bit of the game. But I still finished it. And the ending was very satisfying. The ending was super well acted. The performances were crazy, crazy good. The boss fight was also really cool. It's the most bombastic fight in the game, so far at least. And I do know that after the ending, you can still explore the open world. You can still do a bunch more quests. And I've been going around the world map in Clair Obscur, and there are just many areas that are just there that weren't visited in the story. There's a bunch of floating islands that we never even visit in the story at all. There's a beach or something, a random beach that you can go to, that you just can go to, and you'll definitely miss if you don't look around the map. And there really isn't a story or side quest that leads you into it before finding it. There's not like, oh, you're in the main quest, right? And there isn't a guy who's like, oh, there's a beach out there. Can you please take my daughter to the beach? There's nothing like that. You just need to find it on your own by exploring the world map. and I really like it because that really harkens back to old like Final Fantasies where you had this big open world, but there are multiple areas that really don't serve any other purpose than for you to then they're just there. You visit them, pretty cool, and that's it. In and out, right? So yeah, Clair Obscur overall incredible game. Leading up to this story moment that I'm talking about, I was pretty sure it's gonna be my game of the year. But after that story moment, I'm like, let's let's wait for now before decide before really considering this as game of the year, right? But I'm still excited for the next game. Can't wait to see what they're cooking. Apparently they're doing DLC. I don't know. I don't know if I need DLC. It's pretty the story is already pretty complete, but it'll be interesting to know what they would consider good enough for DLC though. We'll see. Next game I want to talk about is Death Stranding. So I just finished the game last week. And again, the things I talked about before are still here. I love the ambiance of the game. I love the open world. And this whole concept of altruism in this game still was retained until the very end. Even if at the very end there was a bunch of like combat and everything. But, you know, you can choose to not engage in combat, especially with the other people in the game. But this is a very wholesome game. But the thing I appreciate most about it, about the story, I don't want to say any spoilers again, is that this is a story of big ideas, big concepts, big sci-fi concepts, big and complex sci-fi concepts that would be hard to make into a story, a real like into a movie or something. It would be cool as a movie actually, but it's hard to write this story given that there are so many moving pieces and so many concepts that it wants to tell you. And it's shown in the game that there are so many things that the game wants to explain to you that a bunch of the story and a bunch of the explanation and plot things are explained at the very last like 4 hours of the game. Your first like 50 hours are just you going around and delivering stuff, and then there's a big lore dump, big exposition dump, and big everything dump at the very end, which is a bit annoying actually, because every step of the way the game wants to explain to you what's going on. So you're just walking around, and then suddenly someone calls you on the phone, and then they explain in like 10 minutes what's going on, right? And then after that, you walk another like 1 minute or something, and then someone calls you again and explains everything. And then you walk another 10 minutes, and then you get into a cutscene with another character that you're gonna fight, but then they explain everything all over again, and they keep explaining. Now, what happens though? This has a weird effect though, where I was able to retain a lot more information about the game because everything was so backloaded that by the time I finished the game, I was like, oh yeah, I understand what's going on. Because one of the problems I encounter, for example, a big open world game that's very long, like 100 hours, if you intersperse story moments throughout the whole 100-hour runtime, you tend to forget a lot of it, especially the beginning of it. So in some way, Kojima backloading all this story stuff to the end made me appreciate this convoluted, this bigger than whatever life story that he's cooked a bit more, because I remember everything. Everything feels recent to me. And so everything was more impactful at the end to me. Especially for a 100-hour game, right? I can't play 100 hours straight, like in 3 days or something. A 100-hour game will take me anywhere from a month to 2 months to finish. I would have totally forgotten everything that happened in the first like week of me playing, right? But yeah, because it's all backloaded, I remembered a lot. Then I watched some more lore videos after, some explainers, some freaking 1 hour to 2 hour long explainers of the story. And I was like, yeah, I know this, I know that, I know that. And everything just made more sense, right? But in spite of these big, larger than life concepts that Kojima put in here, the core of the story is still very, very human. And that's the craziest thing. Because I was not really expecting this too much from Kojima. For Kojima, what I expect is that he's going to introduce all these convoluted elements, all these bigger, complex thoughts and complex narratives, and just go crazy and not really rein it in. Right? That's kind of what I expect from Kojima. Just put it all out there and just keep the crazy going until the very end. However, for this one, everything was crazy. Everything was big. Everything was complex, but he reined it in so masterfully at the end that it felt more intimate than I expected. The end scenes of this game, the actual end of the story is very character driven. It was more set on the characters rather than the world itself. It was more on the character rather than the big overarching narrative of the whole timeline of the universe, basically. Because the game talked about, the Big Bang. It's even talking about Big Bang. It's talking about extinction and stuff like that. But in the end, it focused more on Norman Reedus' character, on Mads Mikkelsen, and just kept it there for such a long time. It focused on its cast of supporting characters. It's all there in that very last few hours, and it just ties all their stories so well, and it interconnects them so well. God, so one of the things this game keeps talking about is connection, right? And when I was watching these final scenes, I was like, that's the connection! Oh my God, the connection! And it really sells this idea of connecting with other people, right? We connect our experiences with others. We form relationships with others. And that's what I mean when I say this last part of the last act of the story was very intimate, because they're focused on the characters and their relationships with each other rather than the freaking Big Bang or something, right? And I appreciate that's so much about this game that I'm super excited for Death Stranding 2. I saw the reviews for Death Stranding 2. I saw mostly from the eagle-eyed views of the reviews. But one thing I really became really excited about was this tweet by Gene Park, where Gene Park is a writer of the gaming column of the Washington Post, maybe. But he said, because this is what I expect again from Kojima. I'm still expecting the same from Kojima. For Death Stranding 2, I'm expecting some convoluted writing, a lot of exposition dumps, a lot of just craziness, right? But what Gene Park said is that Death Stranding 2's writing could be Kojima's best writing yet. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal writing. And he said that Death Stranding 2 kind of goes back to Metal Gear Solid 3 levels of writing. And from what I remember from all the Metal Gear Solid games, 3 was my favorite because the story was so good. The story was so neat and well written. Now, if Death Stranding 2 harkens back to that, and even then, even if it harkens back to that, Gene still says the story is the best Kojima story yet, I'm super excited. I can't wait. Because if there's one thing I learned from Death Stranding 1 is that from the end is that Kojima can rein his stories in. So if Death Stranding 2 does the same and he just writes it and cooks it so well, then oh boy, I'm super excited. I don't want to super hype myself up, overhype myself, but I can't. It's way too good. I watched the Digital Foundry analysis of the game and stuff. I watched it on my 4K TV, my LG something OLED TV, and oh my God, it looks so good. So what I did here was, remember my house was ransacked, right? They took my TV. And with my TV, they took the remote, they took the One Connect box, which a TV connects to. So this TV connects to a One Connect box, and the One Connect box kind of houses the HDMI ports and everything. But apparently this TV cannot work without the One Connect box. So the people that ransacked the house took the One Connect box, but the police was only able to recover the TV itself because maybe they didn't even know the One Connect box existed, right? So I now have the TV without the One Connect box. So I looked on the internet for a One Connect box, and goddamn, it's super expensive. It's like $200 for a One Connect box. But you know what? I just took the hit, bought a new One Connect box. Even the cable expensive. The cable is like $20. And now my TV is now working. So now I'm finally ready to play Death Stranding 2 on my big TV. Because I played Death Stranding 1 on my monitor, my PC monitor. So now I'm going to be playing Death Stranding 2 on my big TV. It's going to be incredible. Can't wait. So yeah, that's mostly what I want to talk about when it comes to games. Can't really talk too much about them without spoiling. But yeah, I'll be playing. I don't know what I'll be playing this week because I'm super excited for Death Stranding 2. I kind of don't want to start a new game. So we'll see. I am still currently lost in the sauce in Romancing Saga 2. I am like 25 hours in. I'm not sure if I'm close to beating it. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like there's so much. But what I'm finding out about Romancing Saga 2 is that the story is very bare bones. Because the beginning part had story, had a bunch of cool story beats to it. But now that I'm in the middle, I'm realizing there's little no story, and it's just dungeon after dungeon after dungeon, gameplay after gameplay after gameplay. And I'm kind of getting tired of it now. I kind of just want to see it through, and we'll see what happens. I want to see it through the end. I want to beat all the heroes and see the ending, and that's it, right? I don't want to. In the beginning, I wanted to explore everything and talk to all the characters and see all the story beats and side quests, but the side quests so far are just not compelling. The first few side quests were really cool. There was something about a coup d'etat in a neighboring kingdom, and you help them basically stop the coup d'etat, right? And you also help in the choosing of the new heir of the kingdom. You got stuff like that. But recently, it's mostly been about, oh yeah, this volcano is about to explode. Stop it from exploding. Then there's this other one. Oh yeah, our village is being raided by this character. Oh, stop him. Stuff like that. But yeah, I'll talk more about Romancing Saga 2 soon. Okay, so lastly, we go into the State of Play. The State of Play, which was premiered on June 5, 2025. It's been 20 days since then. God. It's been so long. But we're still going to talk about a few things. We're not going to talk about everything anymore. Previously, if this was more, if this was more recent, I would have talked about everything. But let's talk about the things I'm most interested in for the State of Play. Honestly, the State of Play, to me, it's their best one yet. This is to me because it's so fit to my tastes in games, because it's so Japanese. It's such a Japanese-filled State of Play, Japanese developer-filled State of Play, which I was not expecting, especially given that this State of Play to me was like, what, 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m. or something like that? Something very, very early, basically. And, if that time is that early, that means they're catering to a more U.S. audience. So it's kind of interesting that it's a U.S. audience that they're catering to, but it's filled with Japanese games. But you know what? Fine, right? Because these Japanese games definitely need a wider audience because they're so super cool. So first off, the first game that I was super interested in, Pragmata. So Pragmata is this game that was shown by Capcom many, many, many years ago. And then at one point was shown again with a trailer that said, oh, we're going to disappear for a few years because we're going to keep working on this game, but we're going to come back. Don't worry, right? So on the PS blog, Pragmata coming to PS5 2026, new gameplay revealed. So from the director of Capcom is Cho Young-hee. To everyone who has been waiting so patiently for an update, and those of you joining us today for the first time, it's my great pleasure to be here with you. So it's been 2 years since I last talked about the game in June 2023, and they finally show their first trailer. It's an all-new science fiction adventure with its own unique twist of action and strategy. So it features 2 main characters as well as a glimpse of our sci-fi inspired visuals and the cold, dark stretch of the moon where the game takes place. Cool. There's even a sneak peek of action gameplay in there for you. So our 2 protagonists, Hugh and Diana, happen upon one another and must work together to defeat the lunar station AI and return to Earth. Both have their own abilities, and you control them both at the same time. There's like emphasis on at the same time to overcome the many obstacles you'll face. This 2-in-1 approach, where hacking is key to your success, is our own unique take on combat that we find only here in Pragmata. So, so the guy is a human. His name is Hugh. Huh, human. And apparently the girl is an android companion called Diana. So it looks like it's going to be a sad dad with daughter adventure. No, maybe he's a happy dad, right? Maybe he's going to be a happy dad, not a sad dad. But I feel like this is going to go in sad directions. You know, what happens with all these, you know, the adult with a child character, you know what happens? Something always happens. The adult always dies, right? At the end. I see what you're doing, Capcom. But yeah, this looks really cool. Maybe the environments look a bit maybe generic sci-fi stuff. Because, you know, it's set on the moon. So you're expecting a certain type of lighting, which is the more grayish and bright white stuff. But I do really like this whole 2 characters in 1 approach thing they're doing, where you control both the main character, which is the guy, and the android, which is a girl, apparently perches on his back. But I think Capcom has been betting big on this game, that they were willing to just take it off the internet for 2 years and come back with it. Also with a full-on release date, 2026, like release year at least. So who knows? Who knows if this game is going to be really good? But so far, it looks really good. And I hope that they had enough time to cook it. Because obviously, this game underwent some kind of trouble. Some development troubles, maybe. Which is why they needed to be taken off. They needed to have radio silence for a while. But hopefully, they got everything in. They're locked in to 2026, and we'll see what comes out of it. So Pragmata, looking really good. Looks like it's a third-person shooter with a twist with a gameplay, right? So, next up that I was super interested in is, of course, Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F is the next chapter in the iconic franchise and launches on September 25. So, it was supposed to launch alongside Marathon, but now Marathon is gone. Well, it's all Silent Hill for now, baby. So, Silent Hill F is this new Silent Hill made by... Who's the developer for this? It's made by Neobards. Is it? So Silent Hill F is a bold new installment in the franchise set in 1960s Japan. Blending traditional Silent Hill psychological horror with Japanese folklore, the game introduces a completely original story crafted by acclaimed writer Ryukishi 07. Now, this is the most exciting thing about this game that we talked about before, is that Ryukishi 07 is pretty much an auteur when it comes to his writing works, right? So whatever this is going to be, it's going to be weird AF. It's going to be one of those, you know how there's a bunch of stories these days that are very sterile, that are made very much to cater to a wide audience. And sometimes they can be very sterile, they can be very boring, they can be very like cleaned up and everything. But them getting the Higurashi and Umineko writer here makes this so much more interesting because he can just go ham on his writing. He's just going to write anything, you know? And brought to life by creature designs by renowned illustrator Kara. Actually, let me check Kara out. Kara Illustrator. I just want to see their designs. God, their art is so good. Holy crap. What? Oh my God, this art. Ugh. So Kara, the illustrator, is making all this. Oh, yummy. Yummy art. I like this take on video games where they basically commission a story from Ryukishi. They commission designs from Kara. They commission like music from this guy. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool approach or something like that. If it is like that. Players follow high school student Shimizu Hinako through the eerie fog-covered town of Ebisugaoka, where disturbing transformations and haunting memories unfold. The music composed by legendary Silent Hill veteran Akira Yamaoka and celebrated game composer Kensuke Inage, Silent Hill F delivers a unique soundscape that contrasts its dual worlds of fog and madness. God, it's so good. Fog and madness are its dual worlds. Under the leadership of producer Motoi Okamoto, which is the producer for Silent Hill 2 Remake, the game marks a fresh and emotionally gripping chapter for the series, one that challenges perceptions of beauty, fear, and the human psyche. I think that's one of the things that recent horror has been doing so well, because horror has always been about, oh, is it psychological or is it like just gory or scary, stuff like that, right? But there has been this recent thing where horror is also beauty. Like there's a lot of beauty in horror, right? So I just love that little concept of injecting beauty into horror. That's so good. It's so good. But yeah, excited to see Silent Hill F. Saw the trailer. It looks better than real life. I wish real life looked like Silent Hill F. Maybe not, because that's kind of scary. They have a bunch of early purchase benefits, deluxe editions, deluxe whatever, collector's editions. The deluxe edition has like a pink rabbit costume and a white sailor school uniform. Cool. Cool. All right. So next game that I was also really interested in, Bloodstained, the Scarlet Engagement, revealed, launches on PS5 in 2026. So when I saw this game, at the back of my mind, I was like, is this Bloodstained? However, from what I saw, it looked more anime, it looked more actiony, it actually looked very energetic for a Bloodstained game. So I was like, maybe not, right? So we are excited to announce Bloodstained: The Scarlet Engagement. What a great title. An entirely new 2.5D side-scrolling action RPG. Helmed by creative director Shutaro and produced by Iga, right? Igarashi, producer also of Castlevania. This duo is renowned for creating games which are famous for the 2D exploration-style side-scrolling action gameplay. They can't say Metroidvania. So it's 2D exploration-style side-scrolling action. So set in the iconic Gothic world created for Bloodstained: Ritual of the Night, the newest installment in the Bloodstained saga brings the rich gameplay and storytelling of its predecessor to all new heights. So the story begins in the 16th century, where the ethereal castle and its demonic inhabitants have been terrorizing the land and laying waste to all who defy their power. All attempts to destroy the castle and fight the demons have failed, leaving many noble warriors defeated and lost. But the last hope of humanity is a duo, which is pretty cool for this game because it's a duo. Leonard, a young Black Wolf's apprentice, and Alexander, a knight and the last survivor of White Stag. So they're like from two different like factions or something. Together, they must work as one to infiltrate the castle, fight for survival, acquire powerful artifacts, and defeat the demon lord Elias. So this is just Castlevania. It's a new Castlevania. The duo's cause will not be easy. Elias is protected by 6 sanguinaries, deadly vampires who each wield powerful and unique abilities. If Leo and Alex have any hope of defeating Elias, they must first unravel the ethereal castle's mysteries and defeat its powerful defenders. Oh, this is so cool! This is so cool! So it says it's the largest and deadliest Bloodstained map to date. Like thorns on a beautiful rose, these new lovely stages hold vicious traps and deadly enemies. Oh, I can't wait to play this game. You know what? I'm just gonna start Bloodstained. Right? I was looking for a game to play. I might just go ahead and start Bloodstained right now. Because I did play a bunch of Bloodstained before, but I wasn't able to finish it. And I remember that there was a promise of more updates and more content in the future. That's why I didn't finish it. So it might be time to just go ahead and play Bloodstained. I'll do it. It's interesting though that they went the 2 male protagonist route for this one, right? Because one of the pulls of the original Bloodstained is the main character. You know, nothing. I'm not gonna say anything much about it, but that's one of the biggest pulls for the first game. And now it looks like they're catering to another audience for the second game. Catering to the BL audience, which is good. They're rich. Okay, next game. Final Fantasy Tactics, of course, the star of the show of Tactics. So pretty cool. We're not going to talk too much about it, but anyway, what's cool about this new remaster remake that they have going on is that it's going to have two versions of it. The first version is the new updated version, which has the updated graphics, which is basically just, it looks the same, but cleaner, quote unquote cleaner, maybe with a cleaner UI as well and more high definition. But they also have the other mode where you can just literally play the classic version. So you get two games in one, you get the new one and the old one all at the same time. And I assume you can switch between them. But FF Tactics is one of the last games that was part of the NVIDIA leaks, right? The NVIDIA leaks, which also housed Final Fantasy IX. It also talked about Tactics Ogre, which released long ago, like the remaster for Tactics Ogre. It had Final Fantasy Tactics, also have FF9. Now, so basically, the only game left that we don't know the status of from the NVIDIA leak from many, many years ago is Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy IX. So now that Tactics is being released, we're getting closer and closer to 9. Also, I'm looking at the Square Enix page. It's interesting that they don't have a PS4 version. What? They have a PS5 version and Nintendo Switch version. Like Switch, not Switch 2. Why don't they have a PS4 version? Interesting. It's interesting because I could have sworn Square Enix was like, we're just going to release on everything now. Why is it? Wait, Ivalice Chronicles. Is it on PC as well? Wait, PS4. PS4. Is it going to release on PS4? PlayStation, Final Fantasy Tactics, Ivalice Chronicles. No, it's just PS5, Nintendo Switch 2, and Nintendo Switch. Huh? Really? Oh, no, there is. Okay, there is. I was wondering because on the actual Square Enix store, it's only PS5 and Nintendo Switch. Oh, maybe only PS5 and Nintendo Switch have physical editions. Okay. So good to know. It's releasing on Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam. So it's a release on everything, which is good. It's releasing on September 30. Crap. I'll be playing another game. September 25. I'll be playing, what was that game? What was that game I was going to play? Silent Hill F. And now they're releasing this game on September 30. Oh my God. Okay. I feel like developers are getting braver now. Not braver, but they're now deciding to set their release dates, reveal their release dates, right? Because now that GTA 6 isn't coming up this year, they can release their games freely this year. Now, sucks to be the people that delayed their game to 2026 only for GTA to delay themselves to 2026. So yeah. Okay, next game I was super interested in is Romeo is a Dead Man, the new game by Suda51. Suda51 from, No More Heroes fame, Killer 7 fame, right? This trailer was crazy. The intro of the trailer was so good looking. It had this weird hand-drawn rotoscope art style to it that I was super disappointed when it transitioned into normal ass, graphics, right? I wanted the game look like that kind of who was that guy? The guy who makes like these the guy who shoots himself in front of the camera, then he draws on them. Josh Haver or something? Wait. Joel Haver. Yeah, it looked like a Joel Howard type of style game until it showed the actual game itself, which is more of a typical 3D action game. But here is from the press release: super bloody action, crazy twists and turns to blow players' minds, and a whole mess of kind of stereotypical gimmicks, all rolled into one wild ride. Our hero, Romeo Stargazer, is a man stuck between life and death. His own was saved mere seconds before the end by way of a time paradox that shattered the space-time continuum, which was created by genius scientists screwing around. Now, Romeo is FBI space-time special agent Deadman, and sporting a rad mask called Dead Gear, must hunt space-time's most wanted fugitives through multiple universes. So it's their bloodiest action game yet. Romeo swaps between guns and swords, using his enemy's own power against them to absolutely annihilate the evil hordes in this peak example of full-on bloody action. So cool. Action-packed story of adventure that transcends space-time. Romeo's search for these space-time fugitives ends up intertwining with his search for his suddenly missing girlfriend, the mysterious Juliet. So you can kind of see what you're expecting, what we're kind of expecting. Maybe a Romeo and Juliet type story with a crazy, kooky story. Also, if you look at the website, romeosadeadman.grasshopper.co.jp, the art is so sick. The art is so cool. It's like an old movie. It's like an old sci-fi movie. My God. I can't wait. Such a cool looking game. Thank you, Pseudo51. Again, Pseudo51, another auteur, right? If these auteurs, it's funny how these auteurs just make games that are not to everyone's taste, that are just niche, but they're so good, right? If you make a game for everyone, it'll kind of suck. If you make a game that tries to cater to every single taste, every single desire, it'll turn out bad, maybe. It'll turn out weird, unfocused. But if you're a guy who's like, yeah, I'm just gonna make a game that's super kooky, space-time continuum, a guy named Deadman, it's gonna be cool. At the very least, interesting, right? Okay. Now, we got 2 more games here that I was interested in from a state of play. I mean, most of it I super liked most of it, but these are just the big ones that we're talking about because it's old news by now. 007 First Light, the new James Bond game. What really is there to talk about? It's a new James Bond game. The new James Bond seems like it's a story about how he got into MI6. So it makes sense that he's super young looking. He looks like a baby, right? I actually hope they would go like the Onimusha route and take the likeness of an actor or a character. Like, I don't know, like David Craig or something, or an old one, a super old one, and just put him in a game or something. But I guess they just went with a more original character. Now this game looks cool, but it's interesting. I didn't really feel much about it. I'm gonna assume a lot of people are excited about it, but I was looking at the game. It's really cool. It's like a new Uncharted, right, so to speak. But something about the look of the game kind of puts me off. I don't know. It feels like it's a realistic looking game, with realistic 3D graphics and everything, but it also feels very cartoony. I don't know. Something about it. I'm just looking at this guy's mug right now, this James Bond guy, and he looks like a cartoon put in the real world or something. But yeah, 007, there's going to be a lot of guns, shooty stealth maybe. There's going to be a lot of set pieces that look really cool. God, this game looks good. But not super interested. It's interesting, but not. I'll wait for more stuff about it. I'll likely play it for sure. But yeah, cool. But the main star of the show, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, launches 2026 on PS5, Steam, and Epic. So this was super out of left field. I am a big fan of Arc System Works because they made Guilty Gear, and a bunch of other fighting games. I'm also really into fighting games, even if I'm bad at them. But I was super surprised when I first saw the Marvel stuff coming up. And I was like, wait, Spider-Man? Wait, what? Why are we showing Marvel stuff? And then turns out it's a fighting game. Then turns out it's a PlayStation X dev product by collaborating with Arc System Works and Marvel Games. And that's when my mind was like, oh my God, this is such a smart move, right? This is a live service game technically, right? And it's being made by people who are good at their job. Arc System Works, good at making fighting games. Maybe the best at making fighting games that look and feel good, right? And it's a PlayStation X dev project in the same way that Stranding was. So it's also going to be PlayStation exclusive on PC probably as well. But this is basically a PlayStation product at the moment, PlayStation Studios product. So have they PlayStation Studios, Arc System Works, and Marvel Games have joined forces to realize the latest in tag team fighters. Marvel took on Fighting Souls. Experience the Marvel universe like never before with reimagined characters and stages, a heart-pounding soundtrack, intuitive gameplay mechanics, and jaw-dropping visuals that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, it's interesting. Okay. So, you know how hero shooters, remember Concord? So Concord failed in many ways, and you can attribute a lot of its failure to its art style, its art direction, and also its IP. Like, you're looking at the IP doesn't look really super valuable. It looks like a knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy thing. But when it comes to valuable IP, Marvel is at the tippy top for sure, right? Because Marvel characters are now, specifically now, recognized everywhere in the world. After so many Marvel movies, so many Marvel origin stories, so many Avengers movies, no matter what you feel about the quality of the movies of these movies, there's no denying that Marvel has such mass appeal right now in the world, not just in the US, but everywhere. Everyone watched Avengers, right? And so I think that's why, in terms of the hero shooter space, that's why Marvel Rivals is so successful, because they are taking a super valuable IP and making something cool out of it. And that's why it's super successful. Everybody loves it. It's making a lot of money. It's new. And they're just going to keep continuing that forever and ever. And now I feel like Marvel, especially in a fighting game, has always been valuable in a fighting game. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Marvel vs. Capcom, right? Marvel is a perfect fit for fighting games. And now by making a Marvel fighting game and pairing them with Arc System Works and removing Capcom from the equation is kind of genius. It's kind of genius. This is gonna be, first off, the game needs to be good, right? It needs to be good. It needs to have rollback netcode. It also features a system we haven't seen. I don't think I've seen this before. 4-player tag teams, right? 4-player tag teams kind of implies that maybe the roster will be it'll have a big roster, unless it's just like 8 characters. Well, that's gonna be weird, right? But in terms of live service games, even if fighting games are more niche, right? The fact that this has Marvel attached to it, for example, Marvel Rivals, right? There are a lot of people out there for sure that don't even play hero shooters, that would have never touched a hero shooter until this Marvel game came along. And now they're playing this hero shooter and they're making money off that. Now, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of people who have never touched a Marvel game, a fighting game, that will get into this game just because it has Spider-Man in it. It has friggin' it has Captain America, all these characters that you know and love, but it's going to be marketed by PlayStation. It's going to be made by the Guilty Gear developers. It's going to be marketed in a whole different way. It's also looking really, really cool. Like the art style they use, The art style they use is very reminiscent of My Hero Academia. So all of these elements, right? Just put them all together. Can make for a very exciting game. A very good game that has legs as a live service game. Plus, it all makes sense now why PlayStation got Evo. So PlayStation acquired Evo, which is basically the biggest like fighting game tournament thing. PlayStation owns Evo now. So they can plaster this game all over Evo. They can make how many friggin' tournaments on Evo? They can make this their main thing on Evo, right? And everybody that watches Evo will want to play this game. Everybody, if anything from Evo becomes viral and they see all these cool Marvel characters, these cool animations that look super cool, everybody's going to want to play this game, even if they're not into fighting games. So, good on PlayStation XDev for making this happen. And also the 4v4 kind of format makes it so that when you see this game, it's going to be chaotic. It's going to have so many effects. It's going to look so nice when you have 4v4s. And that's one of the things, right? Even in Marvel movies, right? Especially the Avengers. They go in big groups, like 4 people, 5 people. So just having that in this game, in a fighting game, have that same kind of effect of, oh yeah, I'm going in with my team of Avengers. 4 kind of implies that maybe you can have the Fantastic Four in just one team. That'd be cool. But yeah, that's how they ended the State of Play. And honestly, the best way they can end it. Just one big surprise of an announcement from PlayStation XDev. So, yeah. That's it for the State of Play. Overall, I think it's the best one. It's the best one for me. It catered to me the most. Out of all their State of Plays, this is the one that I just really, connected with. There's so many other games in there that we didn't discuss, but, especially there's a puppet game that looked really, really funny and really good looking, actually. I want to play that. But yeah, that's it for the State of Play. But aside from that, there's nothing else to talk about. That's it for the show, right? We still went on for 2 hours, surprisingly. What do I have going on today? Let's see. I'll probably do some recordings here and there. Nothing much else. Just gotta go ahead and I'm not gonna have breakfast. I'm gonna have coffee. And then I'm gonna go ahead and feed my dogs. And then I'm gonna be playing some Romancing Saga 2. And then I'm gonna do some recordings, maybe make some music. And after that, maybe chill. And then sleep. Rinse and repeat. Over and over. Until we all die. Wow. That became kind of sad at the end. But yeah, can't wait for Death Stranding 2. I really want to play it. But that's it for me, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Goodbye.